What's Penn State and Cael Sanderson's plan for Carter Starocci as he still recovers? How many individual champions will Penn State have, as Penn State is going to win the Big Ten tournament, but how many champions will they crown? Well, let's discuss that in a full preview of the Big Ten wrestling tournament.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Penn State fans? Thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host of the show, and today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them out all today at nissanusa.com. This is a preview of the Big Ten wrestling tournament, a full preview going through each and every weight class. And to help me do just that, we welcome him back, the voice of Penn State wrestling, also morning show host on 98.7 The Fox in State College, and that is Jeff Byers. Jeff, thanks so much again for the time. Remember, if you're not already, become an everydayer, subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. And if you want to keep up with Jeff, of course, 987thefox.com is where you can listen to his daily talk show from 8 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. And of course, when he's calling a wrestling match at gopsusports.com. Jeff, the Big Ten tournament is here. It's postseason's finally here. We also have an update on Carter Starocci, but with all these preview episodes, start them the same way. Start with the prediction, general overview, and then we'll go through each individual weight class and how we think it's going to turn out here. But as far as the Big Ten tournament as a whole goes, kind of like the regular season, Penn State's going to win as a team. We know this, but it's a matter of how many individual champions they are going to get. And with Carter Starocci, it felt like there was a little bit of confidence, but it felt like Cael Sanderson was holding something back in his press conference. So I think that Penn State has still Levi Haynes as a lock. I think that Carter Starocci, even with one leg and one arm tied behind his back too, he'd be a lock. Aaron Brooks is a lock. Greg Kirkfleet is a lock. And then Mitchell Messenbrink and Beau Bartlett are heavy favorites. And then never say never for Braeden Davis and Aaron Nagao and Tyler Kasak and Bernie Truax. Am I in the ballpark here with my assessment of how Penn State is heading into the Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, I don't call me overly cautious. I don't think there is such a thing as a lock. I saw Spencer Lee get pinned last year. I've seen number one seeds get pinned in the opening round of the tournaments. The number one seeds for Penn State, you certainly feel good about. But as great as Aaron Brooks is, he's not a lock. This is a crazy sport, and we see crazy things happen. You go all the way back to Dan Gable losing to Larry Owens. I mean, it's just it's the nature of sports. Now, so I'll start there. I don't think anybody is a lock.
That's fine.
As far as the team race, I do think Penn State is as close to a lock as you're going to get in the sport ahead of a tournament. I mean, just because it's that combination of the top end firepower, which certainly Penn State has. Even if Carter Starocci doesn't go at all this weekend, I still think Penn State would be a prohibitive favorite. But, and again, they have the top to bottom depth this year as well. I mean, they have 10 guys that could place. I think all 10 could place in the top three at the Big Ten tournament in their respective weight classes. So, it's going to be very, very difficult, nearly impossible to imagine a scenario where another team beats out Penn State in the team race. Individually, I do think there's a lot of really interesting storylines, both from Penn State's perspective and just from the conference as a whole. And obviously, you start with Carter Starocci, and we're just going to have to wait and see, Zach. I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities here for what Penn State could do. I think a lot of it is just going to depend on how Carter is feeling on Saturday morning of the Big Ten tournament. My guess is, and this is a guess by me, but I think all things considered, Penn State would like to get him a match under his belt. Now, the danger there is the potential to re-aggravate or complicate the
Right.
injury. But and that's possible because I think DJ Washington is his likely opponent, and DJ Washington just happens to be one of the two wrestlers in Starocci's career who have beaten him. Now, it was many years ago in a dual meet, but
long time.
but Washington has so there is some danger there, and there's some history obviously there between the two. And that's presuming that Washington would beat Andrew Sparks, and that's presuming the seeds hold up as they currently are. I think all of that would be the case. I think in the best case scenario, Penn State gets Starocci a bout under his belt. He wins it and then medically forfeits out to 6th place, takes, probably a 3 or a 4 seed at the NCAA tournament, and then goes out and does what Jason Nolf did in 2018 and goes out and wins a national title. I think that's best case scenario, and I think that's a possibility. It's also possible he just steps out, Carter steps out for 1 second on the mat, injury defaults, and then medically forfeits out. He's going to receive an at-large bid if he does that.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. So, I think he is going to go to the Big Tens. I think he will end up in the NCAA tournament. And then, again, the question is going to be, what is he capable of doing there? And just because of his competitive nature, again, I think he will at least be very much in the mix for a national title there at 174.
And I think that was very telling coming from Cael to say that when he was asked directly about it, that could a scenario with like Jason Nolf be on the table? And he said potentially, right? So it felt like this almost cautious optimism with where Carter is. And again, a leg injury, kind of similar to a back injury in almost any sport, wrestling, football. I don't think it's these things like that's your base, that's your power. So I'm not trying to discredit a broken hand, what Carter Starocci went through, but if this is a hyperextended knee and if this is somewhat a serious injury, he's going to need more recovery time than just this 12 days here, as talented as he is. But I'm still confident that, he could wrestle, but this is more than just you can bypass a Big Ten title because your eyes are set on the NCAA title above all else, because they're willing to sacrifice the win streak for this, right?
Yeah, and listen, this comes down to mindset as much as anything. And listen, sometimes you just can't go. An injury is an injury, and you can't go. But it sure seems like Carter is going to go. And then it comes down to mindset. Yep, the knee is going to be hurting. Yep, you're not going to have the same leverage that you normally would. You're not going to be able to be the same wrestler that you normally are. But Carter is just such a competitor, and he has that mindset. All right, now I need to change my mindset from I'm going to dominate everybody to I am going to find a way to win every match I wrestle, no matter what. And, he is a kid that is capable of overcoming that. And there are not many, I think, as you said, at this late stage of the season that I would say, I still give him a shot. But Carter Starocci, I definitely do still give him a shot. He just is a guy that has battled injuries all of his life. So that's one thing, is this isn't new territory for him where, hey, I've never not felt great going into the postseason. No, he's been there plenty of times before. And so in that regard, I think he is helped by his past injury problems, because it's not something new. Now, this particular injury, again, maybe a little different strategy that's involved here. But I think in terms of the mindset that he needs to approach it with, I think he'll be fine. And again, I think he'll be right there in the mix. There's a lot of really good guys at 174, and Carter Starocci on one leg, I think, is certainly obviously much more vulnerable, but I still think he's right in the mix, and it'd be hard to bet a whole lot against Carter Starocci given what he's done throughout his career.
So we will preview 174 a little more in depth, given the situation with Carter Starocci and what that could mean for Terrell Bearclaw going into the weekend at the Big Ten tournament. Now we're going to go through weight class by weight class, 125 all the way through heavyweight at 285, and how the Penn State wrestlers' path will look in College Park, Maryland. The start of that 125 as we lead it off is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players, all your favorite NBA teams with things like quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. You can combine all your favorite bets into one bet, a parlay with boosted odds and boosted winnings. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. The Locked On Podcast Network is making history. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, and now you can find it available in the free Fire TV Channels app. And remember, if you want to keep up with what Jeff Byers does outside of wrestling, you can listen to him daily, 8 to 10 a.m. on 98.7 The Fox. That's your local sports talk station in State College, Pennsylvania, Happy Valley, 8 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. You can also stream it if you're out of the area at 987thefox.com. We'll start with 127, and the pre-seeds have been released. So at the recording of this episode and the posting of it, most people the bracket will come out a little later, but we have the pre-seeds for the top 14 wrestlers at each weight class. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. 125, probably the toughest avenue here, because this is truly a roulette situation. And Jeff, we've always framed it that way at 125 for Braeden Davis. I don't want to say that he has the most difficult path, if you will, but he is the lowest seed. Everybody's sixth or better in the seeding for these Penn State wrestlers. Braeden Davis happens to be the lowest at sixth, but this is a tough 125 weight class, but I will not count out Braeden Davis just because of that. Just when you think someone like Spencer Lee is a lock, Matt Ramos, who is the top #1 seed, pinned him in the semifinals a year ago. Then you have Drake Ayala, you have Eric Barnett, Patrick McKee, and Caleb Smith, someone who we saw recently defeat Braeden Davis. So this is a loaded 125 weight class, and that's not even to neglect anybody else that here. Ohio State's Brendan McCrone, Michael D'Agostino, who Braeden Davis did in fact beat, right? So this is a really, really good 125 weight class, and will certainly carry over into NCAAs. But Jeff, from your point of view, what does Davis's path look like? As he's probably going to have to go up against Barnett and then eventually Drake Ayala if all things go well in his first couple of rounds.
Yeah, so 125 to me, both in the Big Ten and nationally, Zach, is the most difficult to project what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think Matt Ramos is rightly #1, and I think he is the guy to beat. But I also think there's probably at least 7 or 8 guys that are capable of beating him on a given match. I mean, it's not like he's heads and shoulders above anybody. And Braeden Davis is it's interesting because I think he is an outstanding wrestler. You start there. And I think he is a guy that has a chance to really make some noise in this postseason. He has been right there all season long and has some really quality wins. Mm-hmm. The potential matchup with Barnett, and listen, again, you don't take anything for granted when you get to the Big Ten tournament, and Cardani is not an easy out, assuming that is who he gets in the first round. But I do think he wins that one, and I do think he gets Barnett. What I think will be interesting there is Penn State has a really good history under this coaching staff of making adjustments and reversing results from the regular season in the postseason
Right.
tournaments, or even, in the Big Ten tournament to the NCAAs. This will be the first meeting between Barnett and Davis. So this will be the first look, obviously, that either have against each other, and same thing with the coaching staff. So I think the chess match here is going to be as interesting as anything to me to watch. I think it's even though Davis is the lower seed, I think it's a coin flip of a bout. And I think Barnett would rightfully be favored. Obviously, he's the higher seed, but also just more experience. Has been around the block several times. And again, it is outstanding. Would not surprise me if Davis wins that one. And it won't surprise me if Davis gets to the finals. I mean, Drake Ayala and him were close. I think there's some things that Davis learned in that bout. And if that's who we would face in the semifinals, I think that's a winnable bout. I also think Davis could very well listen. He could fall down to 7 or 8. Again, there's not a lot of separation there. I'm looking even all the way down to like number 10, Tristan Lujan of Michigan State. Like, that is a dangerous wrestler at the number 10 spot. So I mean, Braeden Davis is going to get to the NCAA tournament. You would like to see, from a seeding perspective, you'd like to see him finish higher than his number 6 pre-seed here. My guess is that he will, but exactly how much higher, I don't know. I could see him finishing. I could see him winning the tournament. I could see him finishing 5th. I'll be not shocked, but I'll be a little surprised if he doesn't finish in the top 5 and at least finish, a spot higher than his seed. But again, 125 to me, Zach, is flip a coin almost from the quarterfinals on in just about every bout. It's like, well, I can see that going either way. And I think it'll be fun for the fans, and it'll be a battle for sure for the coaches and wrestlers here.
I mean, truly at 125, I would say anybody in the top 8, if I'm going to abstain from being a little too generous, but anybody from the top 8 could seriously win this weight class. I think Ramos, even though Ramos has done some incredible things, he's been vulnerable. Ayala has been vulnerable, right? Any of these wrestlers have just shown some weak points where on any given Saturday, right? Any given weekend, you can get a victory from a wrestler that isn't exactly expected in this case.
Well, and again, I would go all the way down to Lujan in terms of guys that I think have a chance to All-American at the NCAA tournament a couple of weeks later. Like, this is just, again, there is just not a lot separating these guys. And so from Braeden Davis's standpoint, right, like what I think he's got to bank on is, I'm still fresh, right? I think these guys have done a great job of keeping him mentally and physically ready to go here in the postseason. And I think if you're Braeden Davis, you just have to trust, listen, these guys being the coaching staff, they know what they're doing. I'm going to listen to them, and I'm going to go out and let it fly. And I really think if he does that, he could be one of the surprises of the weekend.
Let's move to 133. 133 pounds is where Aaron Nagao is. He's seated at number 5. The wrestlers ahead of him, Dylan Ragusin from Michigan, Dylan Shaver at number 2 of Rutgers, Nick Bazakis from Ohio State at number 3, and then Jacob Van D of Nebraska. We never saw Van D and Nagao get to happen, but I don't want to say obviously, right? Nothing's, as you're telling me here, nothing's a given, but we should expect to see a 4 versus 5 matchup between Nagao and then Van D, and then the winner would most likely move on to face Ragusin in that number 1 spot. So that's the way that side of the bracket shapes up. And honestly, for Nagao, that's why I say it's Nagao, even though as a 5 seed, it's really not that far. I don't want to say it's like the 125 where it's just a jack in the box. Anybody could show up and win, but Nagao, with his potential, and we saw him turn it on last postseason, could do the exact same thing again here now that it's March.
Yeah, Zach, Aaron is just one of those guys. Aaron and Bernie, who we'll get to later, are just 2 guys that I really think are going to benefit from this coaching staff and just from their ability to learn from the regular season. Again, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I think Nagao's seated properly here at number 5, but in my mind, Zach, if he goes out and wrestles the way he's capable of, and I think he's feeling good now at this stage of the season. He's finally gotten over the illness that was really, I mean, it plagued him for about a month there. I really think he is a guy that can go out and turn a whole lot of heads with his performance this weekend. There is not a guy there that I think he's not capable of beating. And I think he's a guy I feel really good about his chances of finishing substantially higher than his number 5 seed. I just think he's a guy that could end up winning the weight class, getting to the finals anyway. I do think the potential semifinal bout between he and Ragusin is going to be about as good as college wrestling gets. I just think those two guys have a really good feel for the sport, have a lot of confidence, have a lot of trust in their own abilities, and I think their styles match up well against each other. I think that's just going to be a very intriguing and fun bout for those that don't have a vested interest. I think that's one of those that you would just circle and say, yeah, I want to see that one.
And I think if Nagao gets to the finals, I think he wins, right? He has to go through Van D and Ragusin in order to do that. But if and when he does, I don't think there's anything stopping him from winning at 133 pounds. And that's kind of what we discussed all season long, is that Nagao is setting himself up nicely on the outside looking in, but still shouldn't be considered distant from this top category here when he wrestles against Van D. And I know I'm assuming here, but that's the matchup I really want to see. Van D, a former Pennsylvania State wrestling champion in his own right, and then goes to Nebraska. We never got to see that matchup. So what should Nagao expect going up against a Van D in that hypothetical quarterfinal?
Yeah, I think one of the keys there, I think, is going to be getting that first takedown. And both of those guys are very good at not allowing their opponents to get the first takedown. Like, I think that's going to be just fun to watch. And then, Aaron's got to do a good job from top. I mean, that's obviously one of his real strengths. And I think that he has to rely on it. He has to trust it here in the postseason. But again, there's not a lot separating those top 5 guys in my mind. And again, I don't think it'll be shocking if any of those 5 end up on top or anywhere between first and fifth. But I really think Aaron Nagao has a lot of trust in the process that he has put himself through and has gone through with this coaching staff. And, I think he believes that he's about to have a spectacular postseason. And that's obviously where it starts. You have to have a kid that believes in himself before anything else can go out and happen.
141, 149 are coming up next as we'll preview Beau Bartlett and Tyler Kasak's path in the Big Ten tournament. So keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Take the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive. Google built-in is always your updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. How about the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder? Has room for up to 8, expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com today. That's NissanUSA.com. And remember, if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams as we're talking wrestling here in the Big Ten tournament. Remember, if you want to keep up with Jeff, you can follow him along at gopsusports.com for wrestling coverage and more sports talk with 987thefox.com, where you can hear his live talk shows streamed, and then 98.7 FM if you are in the area for local sports talk. 141 and 149 in this segment to finish part one of the shows. This is a two-part to cover the entire Big Ten tournament here as we go through each individual weight class. Beau Bartlett. And why I didn't exactly characterize him as a lock is because when you look at this 141 class, Jeff, Jesse Mendez, Real Woods, Brock Hardy, Sergio Lemley, it's just so top heavy with the talent. And this is all in the Big Ten. This isn't the NCAA class for 141. This is the Big Ten, which is all going to move on to the NCAA tournament as well. So it's just because any given time you go out on the mat, I know Beau Bartlett has beaten Jesse Mendez this season, Real Woods, and Brock Hardy too, in his own right. Those are all top 10 wrestlers in the nation, but it's not going to get any easier. The reason these guys are so tough is because good luck trying to beat them twice. I think Beau Bartlett can do it. Am I confident? Yes, but will he? Well, the percentages aren't exactly, a guarantee, like we've been saying throughout this episode here. But Beau Bartlett is the top seed at 141, and he's shown that he can beat them, but these guys are all going to be out for revenge.
Yeah, no question. And I agree. The top five guys at this weight are just outstanding. And I mean, this weight class is another one that is just loaded. And in the Big Ten in particular, I mean, 11 automatic qualifiers from the conference tells you about all you need to know about just how deep this weight is. And the fact that Beau Bartlett is going into this postseason undefeated, to me, Zach, is one of the great stories here of this Penn State team this season. Bartlett, he's just taken his game to another level. He has a different confidence about himself. And, he knows how to win the tight matches. Yeah. Now, does that guarantee anything this coming weekend? No, because I'm with you. I think any of those top five guys are capable of going out and winning this thing on the weekend. But again, Beau has just been so consistent in terms of finding a way to win, taking control in the matches, and not dominating, but taking control in the matches against other top-ranked kids. To be honest with you, I know Real Woods was number one most of the season. I really think Jesse Mendez is in my mind a kind of a clear number two. And then I think both Brock Hardy and Sergio Lemley, and again, I'm not discounting Real Woods. Maybe he gets hot here in the tournament. I think Real Woods has, and again, I could be proven wrong. That's what the postseason is for. But it feels to me, Zach, watching him kind of as this season went along, I think he's hit a bit of a wall. And we've talked about this before with 6th and 7th year guys. It is just hard. This sport is a mental and physical grind. And I know there's a lot of people, and I don't blame anybody for coming back and using the extra year of eligibility they got from COVID at all. But I think a lot of people presume that, oh man, that's going to give those guys a huge leg up. And we just haven't seen it play out that way. And I don't think it's because of any lack of heart or effort or talent. I just think, again, it is a hard grind to go through a college wrestling season, and to do it 4 times is one thing. To do it 5 or 6 times, it is really, really hard. And again, we'll see how it plays out. I'm not sitting here telling you I think Real Woods has no chance. But of the 5 that are the top 5 seeds here, in my mind, the one that would be most surprising to me to see win this thing this weekend would be Real Woods. But I do think those top 5, again, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them go out and compete.
I'm anticipating a Bartlett versus Mendez rematch and then let them settle it from there. But it's not going to be easy when in that quarterfinal matchup, or I should say the semifinal matchup, actually, Bartlett's going to face either one of Brock Hardy, who was very close to defeating him, and then Sergio Lemley, who I think is still coming on as a young wrestler.
No doubt. No, and both of those guys, again, are just fantastic wrestlers. And I think, Beau will have his hands full from the, I mean, really even from the quarterfinals on in, but certainly to win the title, he's going to have to beat two really good wrestlers and, three good ones for sure.
And we'll keep it going here. 149, Tyler Kasak comes in as the number 4 seed. True freshman, number 4 seed in a bracket where, okay, I know there's a lot of talent here in the first 4 seeds with Rich Lovett, Austin Gomez, Austin Gomez taking out Nick Lee at the Pan Ams. I mean, we'll discuss that a little more. And then there's Caleb Rachi from Iowa. But Kasak, just all the potential. And this is where the younger wrestlers figure it out in the postseason. This is where Levi Haynes really became a household name. Is this Tyler Kasak's turn? But it's going to be difficult with the first 2 wrestlers that are at the top there. Hey, he was neck and neck with Rich Lovett. I'm not saying that couldn't, turn around and flip into the favor of Kasak, because that's going to be that semifinal matchup if it does happen. But let's focus, I guess, on the 5 seed, who he's going to be facing more likely so, and that's Dylan D'Amelio out of Ohio State. So Kasak versus D'Amelio here. Are you liking Kasak's chances? Where do you think he is going into the postseason, Jeff?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think he's obviously seeded based on the regular season results exactly right. And I think that's probably where most would project him to be going into this tournament. Those top 3 guys, Zach, are just outstanding. The top 2 in particular. I mean, Rich Lovett and Austin Gomez are both guys that are certainly capable of going out and winning a national title as well as a Big Ten title here in March. So, but listen, Tyler Kasak probably gave Rich Lovett about as good a run for his money as anybody has.
Right.
Now, I will say there is a difference, and Cael's talked about it many times over the years. There's a difference between keeping it close against a top-ranked guy and then actually beating him. So, can Tyler Kasak take that step? And again, close, tied in the 3rd period. Can you go get the takedown? Can you force it and get it? That remains to be seen. I think Kasak has the right mindset to go do that. I mean, I don't think Tyler Kasak was satisfied coming off of the mat against Nebraska that, oh man, I did a good job keeping it close. That was not his mindset. It was, dang, I should have had that. But again, difficult against a guy like Rich Lovett or Austin Gomez, who just, again, was on fire at the Pan Am Olympic qualifier for sure. Can Tyler Kasak take his game to another level? We'll find out. I think Tyler's right there, but, right there gets you to, maybe the second round of the NCAA tournament, maybe the blood round. Now can he go from right there to that next step? And I'm an All-American. I'm a national title contender. We're going to find out. I think, again, the mindset is there. I think Tyler Kasak is going to go out and let it fly. I think he has the confidence, and I think he has the ability, but the experience that Lovett and Gomez in particular bring with them is just awfully difficult to match. So if you're Tyler Kasak, I think you're going in there with the mindset, I'm going to go win a Big Ten title. Regardless of what happens, I think you then have the mindset, okay, lessons learned, we regroup. Or even if you win a Big Ten title, it's like, okay, I haven't really done anything yet. Now let's get back to work. And again, then you see what happens at the NCAA tournament. But right now, I think it's all part of the learning process, part of the maturation for Tyler Kasak. And again, I think regardless of the results, it's all good in terms of experience here that he gets for the postseason. And I will say the potential here for some of these matchups is just, Gomez Rachi alone would be worth the price of admission here. Lovett Kasak round 2 is probably worth the price of admission. And listen, Kasak D'Amelio is going to be a dandy in the quarterfinals as well. So again, hopefully, if you're Kasak, you get the win in the quarterfinals, and you at least get a feel again here for Ridge Lovett, and see if the experience you had a couple of weeks ago pays off in terms of taking that next step and proving that you are in fact a title contender.
It's going to do it for part 1 here of the Big Ten tournament preview for the lens of Penn State wrestling, as we go through each individual weight class to see what the path is like for that respective Penn State wrestler. So stick around for part 2, as we're going to pick it up with Levi Haynes and move all the way up to heavyweight where Greg Kirkfleet is waiting, as we preview the entire Big Ten tournament here on Locked On Nittany Lions.